Mr. Speaker, sir, the Honourable Prime Minister, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, and Honourable Members of this August House. I rise this morning to enlighten this House on Tropical Cyclone Harold, disaster management operations, and how the government responded to assist those who were affected. May I take this opportunity to acknowledge the work of the Honourable Usmate and, of course, the Honourable Mahendra Reddy, who were responsible for the respective ministries, Ministry for Infrastructure and Disaster Management, and, of course, the Ministry for Rural Development, which the commissioners come under for their able leadership and the good work that had set the platform for me when I again took over the portfolio as a result of the cabinet reshuffle, Mr. Speaker. So, Honourable Speaker, we all know that the response to TC Harold has been greatly challenging due to the wide geographical spread of the affected areas, as well as the global COVID-19 pandemic, which restricted the movement of people and delivery of supplies. Despite this, Mr. Speaker, sir, all phases of our emergency response has been delivered successfully while observing our COVID-19 protocols. TC Harold was the strongest tropical cyclone to occur in the South Pacific Basin since Cyclone Winston in 2016. It should be noted that Kandavu and Southern Low Group have been repeatedly affected by cyclones in the past 2 years. TC Gita, TC Kenya, and TC Joshi, and were therefore more vulnerable to the impact of TC Harold. In fact, for the 2019-2020 cyclone season, TC Harold is the third tropical cyclone to have made landfall, with TC Sarai and Tino also impacting the Fiji group late last year. Mr. Speaker, one thing is very clear, which I want to emphasize now. Even with this double battle of COVID-19 and TC Harold, this government has managed to coordinate efficiently and mobilize all its available resources and was able to reach every household and individuals affected by the cyclone. And the good thing is that we will do more and we will not leave anyone behind. Mr. Speaker, sir, Tropical Cyclone Harold struck Fiji on Wednesday, the 8th of April, and the cyclone passed just south of Fiji's main island of Viti Levu, making landfall in Kandavu, impacting Nandrongan, Wosa, Vatulele, and the Southern Low Group, and in the process causing widespread damage. TC Harold affected an estimated population of 182,892 along its pathways, with over 6,100 evacuees seeking shelter in around 204 evacuation centers across the 4 divisions. May I take this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, sir, just to again refer to yesterday's discussions in this August House about evacuation centers in Fiji. I'll just quote a few of the evacuation centers that were constructed from 2014 onwards. 2014, Welang Evacuation Center, Taveuni, cost of $84,268. Nabakaka Evacuation Center, Dakonrob, in 2015 at a cost of $56,000 plus. Wasavuli Evacuation Center, Maduata, 2015, $51,000. Ratabu Evacuation Center, Mba, $122,000. Mbarotu Evacuation Center, Mba, 2015, $49,000. Korbo Evacuation Center, this is in Naita Sirisa, $73,000. Mburbasanga Evacuation Center in Rewa, $98,000. Upgrading of Dingila Evacuation Center in Dakonrobe, $16,000. Upgrading of Nanduri Evacuation Center in Maduata, $12,000. Nangarabutu Multipurpose Center in Tunoloa, Dakonrobe, $24,000. Wembalabu Evacuation Center, $1, Naita Siri, $8,900. This was in the 2018-2019 period. Namama Evacuation Center in Maduata, $4,000. Nambugundong in Dongtuki, $3,000. Bangsao Evacuation Center, and we have a few in this year. Let me assure this August House that the assistance was not removed. It was only reprioritized, and of course I have explained in detail yesterday the need to do so. Mr. Speaker, sir, government activated its disaster response mechanism at the national level, whereby government ministries and key stakeholders worked with the National Disaster Management Office and the divisional commissioners at subnational level. The NDMO and divisional commissioners also provided situation reports and daily briefings on the state of response and key coordination issues to the Honourable Prime Minister, ministers, permanent secretaries who are members of the Disaster Council and other relevant agencies. Mr. Speaker, sir, the national and divisional coordination was focused on the provision of life-saving assistance and the restoration of essential services, including the repair of community infrastructure destroyed or damaged by the cyclone, such as roads, airstrips, marketplaces, electricity, communications, water supply, and so on. As soon as the disaster passed, government officials on the ground were mobilized to carry out a quick assessment on key infrastructures and to organize any urgent medical response, including medical evacuation. Within 24 hours of TC Herald's impact, government was able to mobilize an aerial reconnaissance with the assistance of the New Zealand government with the provision of the PC Orion aircraft. The aerial assessment indicated significant damages in the eastern and western divisions and approximately 57,000 plus people requiring immediate life-saving assistance. This information, Mr. Speaker, sir, was analyzed by the emergency committee that convened on the 9th of April and recommended for the worst affected areas to be declared as a state of natural disaster. This recommendation was endorsed by the Honourable Prime Minister, and the declaration of state of natural disaster for the affected areas was gazetted on the 12th of April 2020 for a period of 30 days. Mr. Speaker, sir, the emergency relief response by government for TC Herald was implemented in two primary phases. Phase 1 of the TC Herald response was deployed within 5 days of the passing of TC Herald. May I emphasize here, Mr. Speaker, sir, this is mainly because of the COVID-19 restrictions, and Suva was in a state of lockdown during this period, so most of the government officials, we have to take them from outside the lockdown areas because it took time for us to assemble them, take them to the point of disembarkation before they continued with phase 1. A total of 3.6 million was utilized for phase 1 of the response to deliver immediate life-saving emergency food and water assistance, as well as non-food items. Restoration of critical infrastructure such as communication, water and power supply were also initiated immediately. These efforts were followed by phase 2 of TC Herald operations, which involved the second round of food, water distribution and early recovery efforts. Another 1.2 million was for the implementation of phase 2 of the TC Herald response. For the first time, government also deployed a desalination plant to assist with emergency water cutting and at the same time provide safe drinking water to affected communities. These two waves of relief deployments, Mr. Speaker, sir, took place within 6 weeks after TC Herald's passing, highlighting government's commitment to deliver much-needed assistance to those in need. Mr. Speaker, sir, as of today, our relief efforts have reached about 182,000 plus Fijians in the most affected areas. Mr. Speaker, sir, the sectoral impact of TC Herald was estimated at over $100 million Fiji, based on the government coordinated detailed damage assessments or DDA exercise that was carried out from the 13th to the 28th of April. The exercise was combined with resource-based preliminary rehabilitation initiatives and other sectoral recovery works. Damages to the agriculture sector has been estimated at around 27.8 million, with 90% of crops destroyed. In the worst affected areas, and much of people's subsistence crops were ruined. This is quite significant, as subsistence agriculture plays an important role in food security and our livelihoods. Based on the DDA data, a total of 227 houses were partially damaged, and a total of 961 houses have been fully destroyed in the 4 divisions, with $24.4 million. Despite the swift response by government in the form of tents and tarpaulins as temporary shelters, the number of affected houses is quite significant and will require a major reconstruction effort. For the first time, Mr. Speaker, sir, the Ministry of Forestry, in partnership with the Ministry of Housing and Community Development and the National Disaster Management Office, developed a strategy to utilize the salvage logs to be considered as one of the contributions for the reconstruction of damaged homes in Kandavu and Lau. And significant damages were also recorded for the infrastructure sector, with damages to the Dia, Kora and Moala jetties and a number of road slips in the Central Division. The Water Authority of Fiji also recorded damages in the Central Division, Western and Eastern Divisions, and likewise for the energy sector. Damages for the infrastructure sector has been estimated at 27.1 million. Mr. Speaker, sir, our education facilities in the Central, Eastern and Western Divisions have sustained heavy damages and at an estimated cost of $10.7 million. The fisheries and forestry sectors have also sustained damages worth $8.1 million. And this is largely driven by the damages to the Kandavu and Matuku pine schemes and damages to fishing equipment and facilities in the fisheries sector. Damages to community infrastructure, particularly for health facilities, has been estimated at $2.6 million, disrupting the delivery of services to communities and will require quick repair or replacement, given that the restoration of such services is critical not only for the wellness of our people, but of course in terms of mitigating the risks of COVID-19 as well. Mr. Speaker, sir, I know that probably the Honourable Minister for Health will talk on this later on, but let me also mention that in the aftermath of TC Herald and subsequent sustained rains and floods, hospitals have reported cases of leptospirosis, dengue, typhoid and diarrhea, or LTDD. The numbers were alarming, and as at the end of April alone, about 3,403 suspected cases of LTDD existed, of which 1,146 were confirmed cases post-TC Herald. Government, through the Ministry of Health, developed a LTDD campaign in a major effort to reduce disease incidents and casualties. This was a whole-of-government approach, Mr. Speaker, sir, with the mobilization of tip trucks, dumpers and human resources to participate in the general cleaning up exercise. The divisional commissioners have been heavily involved in the LTDD eradication campaign at the subnational level, organizing the divisional cleanup days for all civil servants, and I also acknowledge the Ministry for Local Government for their active participation. Government ministries and town councils also work together at the national level to remove the rubbish from selected high-risk areas in the Suva area, particularly to support the Ministry of Health's efforts in combating LTDD. Mr. Speaker, sir, as I mentioned, the response to TC Herald is especially challenging due to COVID-19 pandemic, where unique considerations were taken into account to ensure that the operation activities adhered to the restrictions enforced under the Public Health Act. This operation was unique and will go down as one of the most complex operations of all time. Government was forced to plan around social and physical distancing, COVID-19 restrictions, curfews, and of course lockdowns as well, Mr. Speaker. In phase one of the response, the Greater Suva area was in lockdown, and all ships and personnel, including government and non-government, that supported the relief effort had to be sourced from outside of the lockdown areas. During the response efforts, no international humanitarian workers outside of Fiji took part in the relief efforts. This speaks volume of what government has done during times of normalcy by training our local people to become resilient during an emergency as such. In light of the lockdown, Mr. Speaker, sir, government had to charter private vessels that not only took food rations and non-food items to affected communities, but also ensure physical distancing on board the vessels for teams that were on deployment. Management of evacuation centers in the COVID-19 context presented a separate set of challenges. Divisional commissioners and divisional health inspectors ensured that there were alternative evacuation centers identified for those community members that were in isolation facilities. Physical distancing rules were enforced in the course of evacuations in line with COVID-19 protocols. The Ministry of Health and Medical Services ensured that all facilities being used as evacuation centers were properly sanitized and disinfected before their closure. Mr. Speaker, sir, the hard work put in by this government and the response teams have paid off, and I would like to highlight 4 major achievements. One, no COVID-19 cases has been recorded from the areas that were visited during the relief deployments. 2, within 24 hours we were on the ground with our surveillance protocols. Within 5 days, 3, within 5 days of TC Herald's passing, the first phase of emergency supplies was deployed. And this shows that government is committed to ensuring assistance is delivered in a timely manner for all Fijians despite the overwhelming challenges faced. In terms of aid coordination, Mr. Speaker, sir, allow me to touch on the aid coordination that guaranteed assistance to our people. The governments of Australia, New Zealand, Indonesia, France, China, Japan, together with international organizations, UN agencies, local businesses and civil society organizations, non-government organizations have all assisted in cash and in kind to government emergency response efforts. A total of 7.4 million in assistance has been received, with 4.1 million in cash and approximately 3.3 million worth of assistance in kind. Let me mention here, Mr. Speaker, sir, that not all of this money was given directly to government. Some with the international agencies and waiting for government to come up with the requests, particularly in the areas of food security, in the areas of shelter, wash kits and hygiene. So that is yet to be coordinated between the ministries, particularly Foreign Affairs, NDMO, and of course the Ministry for Economy. These coordination meetings were held weekly at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and a government team comprising NDMO, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Economy, and the Office of the Prime Minister coordinated donor relations from the NDMO office. This coordinated engagement with donors on the humanitarian situation and response requirements, as well as government priorities and assistance needs, has resulted in a number of successful international funding support, such as the SURF funding, involving $1 million and of course the ADB funding request of $400,000 as well. Local civil society organizations and non-government organizations have again proven to be a valuable partner to government in responding to the needs of affected communities in the form of relief supplies and of course counseling as well. Mr. Speaker, sir, the NDMO is now facilitating the development of an intersectoral early recovery TC Herald response and resilience plan that will be driven by the Ministry of Economy and line ministries so as to ensure the development of sector-specific strategies and plans. The plan will ensure an effective transition into longer-term recovery while building resilience in the affected communities. A few lessons learned, Mr. Speaker, sir. TC Herald has been a uniquely challenging event for the government to deal with, particularly in the context of the global COVID-19 pandemic. Never before has twin threats of this nature been simultaneously presented to the government to deal with, and it is a testament of the commitment and hard work of all Fijians. The threats of COVID-19 and TC Herald have thus far been addressed in a timely and adequate manner. In fact, government response has been swift and efficient despite the constraints of COVID-19 protocols. To illustrate the efficiency of government's response, allow me, Mr. Speaker, sir, to outline key milestones of the TC Herald response effort. TC Herald impacted Fiji on the 8th of April. Again, first aerial assessment was on the 9th of April. Government declared a state of natural disaster on the 12th of April. The first wave of food rations and the second wave was concluded within the period of 13th April to the 28th, as I had mentioned earlier. Mr. Speaker, sir, government is now conducting after-action reviews at divisional and national level and will build upon the lessons learned during the response to TC Herald and COVID-19 to ensure that our future preparedness and response mechanisms are robust and flexible enough to successfully tackle the increasing complex hazards that we now face. We are fortunate thus far to have been separated, to have been spared from the devastations of COVID-19 and have been spared the worst of TC Herald. We must not, however, be complacent, and I assure you that government will do its duty and its utmost best to ensure that lives of ordinary Fijians will be protected from disasters in the years to come. I applaud the spirit of patriotism and care for fellow Fijians that has been clearly evident and displayed by not only CSO and NGOs, but also by private individuals, groups and companies that have contributed their time, effort and wealth in assisting their countrymen. I also like to thank all ministries and organizations for contributing to the successful operation of TC Herald, and particularly to the Honorable Prime Minister for his able leadership. TC Herald response was a multi-sector stakeholder approach and a good example of the need for Fijians to work together in an effort of disasters, as disasters do not discriminate. Mr. Speaker, sir, and my fellow honorable members of the House, I thank you for this opportunity to share an overview of government's response efforts to TC Herald. An overview.